What about the population in general? I mean, it's a fascinating insight that you've just laid out for Xi Jinping's view on Trump. But what are the people of China? What's the population think about Trump? What's their view?
In the first term, they love Trump. They love Trump not because of what he said or what he did. Matter of fact, they didn't like what Trump said or did. But they liked his being unfiltered, being free, being spontaneous, being a human being. That is in comparison to Xi Jinping and especially his predecessor, Hu Jintao, who's was just basically lifeless. The other thing that they loved about Trump was that he took on the elites and won. And that gave them inspiration that they could do the same thing in China with the elites that they really, really hate. So from a points, Trump was just very popular in China. And by the way, that fed into the Communist Party's deepest fear about the United States. Communist Party believes it is in an existential struggle with the U.S. And it's not because of anything that our leaders say or do, but it's because of who we are. You have an insecure regime in Beijing is worried about the inspirational impact of our values and form of governance on the Chinese people. And Trump just makes this so much worse for the Communist Party.
And how filtered is the news at this stage of the game in China?
It is filtered. The regime realizes that they can't keep out all news. So what they do is they spin it. They spend an extraordinary amount of effort putting news into context because they realize that one way or another, it does seep in. But yeah, they're trying to censor things. CNN will go off the air at times because the regime doesn't like what they're hearing. They do still have the Great Firewall, which is the world's most sophisticated set of internet controls. They don't try to keep out everything because they know that they can't be North Korea, but they are moving in that direction. And that's why Chinese netizens say that they are West Korea.
You mentioned North Korea there. That raises an interesting question. For a long time, the thought process, at least in the West and certainly in the U.S., seems to have always been, if you need to affect change in North Korea, you, in a sense, have to go through China, right? And exert pressure on China to then exert pressure on North Korea because of their relationship. Is that true? I mean, how much leverage, how much influence does the Chinese regime have over Kim Jong-un? And I'm asking that question, obviously, because of the deepening relationship between Kim Jong-un in North Korea and Putin and his war effort in Ukraine.
China has enormous leverage over Kim Jong-un. It chooses often not to exercise it, but when China really wants something, it gets what it wants. You have a lot of people in New York and Washington who say the Chinese and the Koreans hate each other, and they've hated each other for centuries. Yes, all of that is true. But Kim Jong-un knows that the survival of his regime depends on China. As they say, Russia is the ambulance, China is the hospital. Also, that's true for Russia. And I think Xi Jinping believes that he not only has enormous leverage over his friend Kim in Pyongyang, but also his friend Putin in Moscow, because Moscow is only in this war because of Chinese continued assistance. If China cut it off, Ukraine would win fairly short order. So right now, there is, I think, that this whole notion that China is upset about the growing relationship between Russia and North Korea, I think that's wrong. I think that actually the sale of shells, short-range ballistic missiles, provision of troops, all of this, I think, was masterminded by China.
That's really interesting because shortly after the news broke that North Korean troops were heading towards Russia for training and then deployment out on the front lines, China's limited statements about it indicated that, well, we didn't know anything about it. Don't ask us that. We're unaware. But what you're saying is, in reality, there's very little likelihood that would have taken place without both their understanding and possibly their approval.
Yes. And by the way, we got to remember that North Korean troops have been in Ukraine for a very long time, because the North Koreans have been selling the shells and the short range ballistic missiles, and they've had North Korean logistics people there. And there are even reports that a long time ago, North Koreans were killed in Ukrainian attacks. Now, what was new is that you have the 4 combat brigades. So that's about 12,800 troops. And with the promise that more will be coming. People are talking 100,000 or so. We don't know where this will end. But yeah, this has been going on for a long time. China also has had advisors in the front lines because they've been supplying drones and other stuff. So, of course, the Chinese know the North Koreans have been there for months.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.